When I first saw this, I thought this was a joke, but this is real. This is right here at nvidia.com. All my sources will be in the description. So I didn't mean to do two news videos today, but you know what? You're getting 2 tech news videos today. That probably means I won't do one tomorrow. We'll throw in a bunch of news right now. Anyway, the point is, Nvidia is unlaunching. This is one reason why I thought this was a joke article when I first read it. And I read it on Reddit. Anyway, the point is, it's unlaunching the 12 gigabyte RTX 4080. Now, this is something that I think is great in some sense, but horrible for, I'm thinking of the AIB partners, and I'll circle back to that in a minute. But what's going on here? Basically, Nvidia had announced an RTX 4080 12 gigabyte and an RTX 4080 16 gigabyte. Now, in theory, having 2 different VRAM capacities on 2 similar graphics cards is fine. We had a 3080 12 gigabyte and a 3080 10 gigabyte, and they performed within a few percent of each other other than the VRAM difference, so that's not that big of a deal. But when we started to see Nvidia actually giving us performance estimates on these cards, we saw that the 4080 12 gigabyte compared to the 4080 16 gigabyte is actually a massive performance difference. Like, we're talking 25 to 30% difference between those 2 cards. So it's very deceptive marketing. They have completely different GPU inside of them. It's not just a VRAM capacity difference. Now, if they had called this a 4080 and not a 4080 Ti or something like that, then it would be more normal to assume that there could be a large performance gap between the 2. So NVIDIA has been absolutely hammered by videos like mine, all the big tech channels. A big reaction to their launch of the 4000 series is that this card is supposed to be a 4070, and they named it a 4080 to help people swallow the pricing of $900. But it looks like Nvidia is backing down. Let's actually see what they have to say about it. So the RTX 4080 12 gigabyte is a fantastic graphics card, but it is not named right. Really? That's because you meant this to be a 4070 or a 4070 Ti. Anyway, having 2 GPUs with the 4080 designation is confusing. You think, Nvidia? Anyway, so we're pressing the unlaunch button, and this is such a weird way to phrase this. I mean, here, let me zoom in so you guys can see this. The unlaunch button on the 4080 12 gigabyte. And guys, I'm not making this. This is nvidia.com. This is real. Anyway, I just accidentally clicked on that. All right, anyway, the 4080 16 gigabyte is amazing and on track to delight gamers everywhere on November 16th. So they're still launching the 4080 16 gigabyte, and there's no word on reducing the price of that one. So we're still expecting that one to come in at $1,200. It says, if the lines around the block and enthusiasm for the 4090 is any indication, the reception for the 4080 will be awesome. So then they show off a bunch of pictures of people lining up for the 4090, and there's a 4090 buckled into a car seat, which again was another reason why at first I was like, are you sure this isn't like The Onion or something? Like a tech version of The Onion? No, this is it. That's the post. So they are unlaunching the RTX 4080 12 gigabyte. Now, like I said, I think that's in some ways a very good thing, but in some ways, I'm a bit concerned because here's the thing. The AIB partners, I'm sure, like, I'm not actually involved in this, but just think about it, guys. These were supposed to launch on November 16th. These were launching in 4 weeks, right? I mean, this is so soon. I am absolutely certain that the AIB partners have already spent a lot of money and time producing both the GPUs themselves, and then, if they say 4080 on them, I'm sure that's going to have to be changed. The boxes are going to have to be changed. I'm sure many of them have already manufactured the boxes, and then the websites, their marketing materials, right? Could they have marketing campaigns already ready to go for all of this? All of that is going to need a rework, and that's all costing time and money. Now, I am really hoping that behind the scenes, NVIDIA is doing something for their AIB partners. Because, I mean, EVGA completely canceled their relationship with Nvidia and got out, it looks like just in time, if I'm right about how frustrating and potentially financially damaging if Nvidia doesn't compensate them, that this would be for AIB partners. I think this is a really big deal. Not only that, But the actual, like what are they going to do with these cards? I'm guessing they'll have to still release them, maybe as a 4070, a 4070 Ti, like we actually expected them to be. You know, that's what all of the leaks for this card, this specs, everybody assumed it was a 4070. Anyway. So like I said, I think that this is a good thing that they're not going to call this card a 4080 and confuse the market. But yeah, I'm very concerned about what that could mean for the AIB partners, and I really hope that Nvidia is actually going to compensate them in some way. Now, also in the news, and let's talk about producing boxes early. So let's jump to some of my other articles. So the GALAX Philippines displays a box. So this is in the Philippines. A GPU manufacturer, GALAX, is displaying a box of the GeForce RTX 4050. So this is pretty interesting. Now, to our knowledge, we don't have an RTX 4050 announced at this point. I mean, we would assume that you would generally get one. But that's pretty interesting. They had the 4050 logo taped off from certain angles, but it looks like that's out there. So speaking of, GPU manufacturers having their GPU, boxes, art, and marketing campaigns ready to go, hey, there's that. Now, I don't think that this means that the 4050 is going to be launching anytime soon, but I thought that was interesting news that we'd throw in there along with this story. Now, also a few little updates. It's looking like the hash rate limiter for the 30 series is dead. Now, that's not really a big deal now because that was mainly to make it hard to mine Ethereum, and Ethereum has shifted to proof of stake. So I guess it makes sense to do that, but it's being reported here at Tech Power Up that the hash rate limiter has been removed. Now, another really interesting question that I was hoping somebody would review, and it looks like they have it here at Tech Power Up now, is checking the 4090's PCI Express scaling. Because a lot of people were very disappointed that the RTX 4090, given its $1,600 price point, didn't use PCIe Gen 5. It used PCIe Gen 4. And why that could be concerning is because on the newest Intel motherboards, the 13th gen, if I'm correct on this, I believe that if you're going to use a PCIe Gen 5 SSD, it's going to pull some of the same lanes, the same PCIe lanes that your GPU would be using, which would effectively reduce the 4090 down to PCIe X8 instead of X16. Now, the Tech Power Up article tested out a lot of PCIe generations on this. And, I'm not going to show you all of their results. I'll link theirs in the description. But if I just randomly select something here, the general result was that PCIe 1.1, which obviously nobody's really using on a 4090, but it's fun for science, did see some reduction in performance. PCIe 2.0 saw some reduction in performance as well, but not much. But PCIe 3.0 16 lanes wasn't very much different. It was a very small difference between that and PCIe 16 lanes. And PCIe 16 lanes, 3.0 at 16 lanes, is equivalent bandwidth to PCIe 4.0 at 8 lanes, which is what you would be reduced to on that Intel motherboard situation. As I understand it, I believe the new AM5 platform from AMD would not have that issue. I think they give full PCIe Gen 5 lanes to both the GPU and the NVMe drive. Although, I'm going to be honest, the motherboard specs do, slip my mind when I don't pull them right up in front of me. But I think I'm right on that. It also seems like the differences in most games were less noticeable at 4K resolution and more noticeable at the lower resolutions. Please see the actual article for all of the details on that. But This would go along with the fact that, again, there's PCIe Gen 5 NVMe drives coming out here. We're seeing CFD Gaming launching one today, so I'm just bringing that up as an option. So these are going to be a real thing. Now, do I think you actually need this fast of an SSD for your gaming PC? Probably not, but if you're the kind of person buying a 4090 and the newest generations of motherboards, this could be a thing that you would care about. Now, I'm really interested to see how this will go along with DirectStorage. Which would theoretically put PCs a lot more in line with their with the current consoles, which have that really fast connection between the quick SSD and their and the GPU without going through the CPU. Well, DirectStorage 1.1 on October 13th, so just recently here, I think yesterday, is showing up on the DirectX developer blog. And the big deal here is DirectStorage 1.0, I believe, didn't do GPU decompression. It still was being using decompression, not being done on the GPU, I think still on the CPU. But the 1.1 version will, I think, be doing GPU decompression. So, and the 1.1 is being outlined here. And, you can read this article again in my description, but, pulling up an example that they're showing off here is that in this test, they're showing 5.65 gigabytes of data loaded in 0.8 seconds instead of 2.3 seconds. And they're showing the CPU usage at 15.08% instead of 100%. Now that's the max CPU usage, but you can see here that this could dramatically increase load times and reduce CPU usage. I really hope that we could see games updated to this is just popping in my head, but the new Spider-Man game, all right, that came out a couple months ago, whatever that was now, the CPU load, especially when you enable ray tracing, gets really high. So a lot of GPUs can actually handle the performance in that game, especially when you're using like DLSS or something like that, even with ray tracing on. But you actually get CPU limited on a lot of very powerful CPUs. This is the kind of technology that I think would help alleviate that type of situation. So I am excited to see that. Now, another thing regarding NVIDIA GPUs, this is interesting. NVIDIA is testing verified priority access for GeForce RTX 4090 Founders Edition purchases, and theoretically this would go to other launches where it's hard to get one in stock at launch. Now, how does this work? This seems to be almost a copy of something that like EVGA did, where they're, priority customers, I forget what they call it, priority access, where you could get into an early access queue system if you're part of that program. Well, what NVIDIA is doing is, I guess, if you have GeForce Experience, you could get a notification through GeForce Experience to give you a priority access link to buy the GPU. Now, if you're in the United States, that link will take you to Best Buy, who sells their Founders Edition cards. If you're in the UK, it would take you to Scan. If you're in it would take you to NBB if you're in Germany and the Netherlands, and if you're in France, Italy, or Spain, it would take you to LDLC. Now, NVIDIA hasn't said how many invites are going to be sent or how the algorithm is detecting you're actually a verified gamer, right? So I think that's the idea, is to try to sell these to actual gamers rather than scalpers. I wonder if they'll check that you actually have a bunch of games installed on your PC that you actually use, maybe something like that. That's just me spitballing ideas for how they might do that. But anyway, I think this is at least a nice gesture. We'll see how it works. I mean, in some sense, it's just a marketing thing like, here, buy our GPU. But if it is hard to buy the GPU and people are scalping them, I think this is, in the end, good to see. But anyway, 12 gigabytes gone, guys. We'll see what comes from here. That is very interesting. And I hope all of you have an excellent weekend. Not sure if I'll get videos out this weekend. Probably not tomorrow, maybe Sunday. We'll see. I hope all of you have an excellent day.